We hope you've all been enjoying your holiday weekend. It's the unofficial kickoff of summer, but it's also the day we honor those who have served our country, and especially those who've made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. A little bit on the history of Memorial Day. It was observed for the first time on May 30th, 1868 as Decoration Day, shortly after the Civil War, a time for the nation to place flowers on the graves of vets killed in battle. But it wasn't declared a national holiday until 1971. To honor our heroes, we want to bring your attention to a troubling problem for some of our vets. Many have been left waiting for months and sometimes years for their disability benefits. The Department of Veteran Affairs has a backlog of nearly 600,000 claims right now. Groups like Concerned Veterans for America are not happy, and they want the Secretary of Veterans Affairs replaced.
In October of 2009, 164,000 in the backlog. It's now 630,000. What is wrong here?
Veterans in the last 4 years, Candy, have joined us in unprecedented numbers.
This administration and you knew that the two wars were going to end. This is not a lack of caring, but this is a lack of something.
Normally when I've run into situations like this is a leadership issue.
Well, this is unacceptable because this is an issue where many people on the both left and right agree. Here's Jon Stewart.
Clearly, the lesson appears to be, if we could take the same urgency, enthusiasm, and clarity of vision you need to get elected to government and apply those to governing, can we fix some problems? Yes, we mother can.
All right, Eric, I think that's a moment when you actually agree with Jon Stewart. You like what he has to say there, right?
Yeah. He has been very outspoken on this issue. He's been great about it. Maybe not so much the other things, but look, President Obama said, he's literally said we have to fix this. He's addressed it, but then he doesn't do anything. I think that's exactly what those two sound bites talked about. Leadership. It's a failure of leadership. Leadership starts from the top down, and if President Obama doesn't make it an absolute utmost, most urgent thing on his agenda, it's going to fall wherever it falls. And for him to say it once and then let it go for months on end without fixing it, there's no reason that our veterans who risk their lives for our freedom to be waiting months, sometimes years, to get the benefits that they deserve today.
Bob, there's bipartisan support on this issue, and you've been very vocal about it as well.
Yeah, listen, here's the thing. You know, I'm always accused of blaming Bush. Well, with Bush, there was only 100 and some odd thousand, a little bit of backlog during Bush. There's 600,000 now of these people waiting. I mean, and you had to anticipate you're going to have a lot of vets coming from the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. And why somebody wasn't prepared for this, and why this guy is still the head of VA, I just don't get it. I mean, I think it's disgraceful. Of all the people in the world, these people who fought, they're sitting in line. They have 624 days it takes them to get veterans their veterans benefits. That is unacceptable.
Yeah, what are they supposed to do in the meantime, Dana?
Well, I think that there has been a history of the Department of Defense and the Veterans Affairs Veterans Administration not communicating well, especially on medical health records. That's one of the things that they have been supposed to do for, what, Bob, 15 years? Something like that. And for some reason, they either can't communicate or they can't get something done. I would say two things. One, so President Obama has met in the last year with his cabinet 4 times. The IRS commissioner testified last week that he had been to the White House 118 times over a 2-year period. So 4 cabinet meetings. You could actually get all of those smart cabinet secretaries in a room and say, okay, in 30 days, I want this cut in half. Or I want a plan of how it's going to be cut in half. Second thing I'd say is that the Obama administration has deep, good relationships with the high-tech companies. I don't think it would be asking too much to go to one of them, a Google or a Facebook or something like that, to say, could we have some of your smartest minds come in here and help us figure out how we could, from a technology standpoint, get this done faster? And I would bet they might be surprised that there is some private sector talent that could come in. If the military can't do the logistics of getting this done, perhaps they need to ask and rely on the private sector to come in and help.
Exactly. Don't be too good and too proud to not ask for help, because it's shameful the way the veterans have been treated, Brian.
Well, the same thing I was going to bring up is that Tim Cook was the expert guy in terms of efficiency that Steve Jobs brought in. Now he's running Apple.
Right.
So why can't you use a guy like that to say, look at this, how do we make this better? I'll bring in my system and see if we can make it work. Now, there's a partnership downtown in the war on terror that Commissioner Kelly put together. So private sector, public sector coming together. Why can't we do that again? again, sadly, part of our history is not treating veterans right. I mean, I'm researching a book right now on Washington, at which time we found a letter from an Army sergeant, this guy Caleb Brewster, where he's writing a letter to Washington saying, hey, I got a bullet in my back. You've never taken care of me. I can't work. Can you help streamline the situation so I get some benefits because I can't make any money? Well, sadly, we treat our veterans bad for generations.
Listen, on top of that, Michelle Obama has made veterans her key issue. Now, this is the First Lady. It would seem to me that if I were her, I'd go to her husband and say, look, I'm out there publicly trying to do everything I can for veterans, and they can't get their benefits.
People
what the hell is that all about?
Hillary for health care, but this is terrible.
Health care. Very important you said that, because the IRS is going to hire 15,000 new IRS employees, agents, whatever you want to call them, to administer Obamacare. Well, how about they hire another 15,000 or 5,000 agents, people who can make some of these health care decisions for these veterans who are waiting to get benefits. A lot of the backlog is people will sue each other. They'll go back and forth. I think I need more. It has to go through the court system. How about everyone just say, look, we'll get 15,000, 10,000 agents for the Veterans Administration, and let them make the decision on exactly what they can do. And by the way, guys, be very generous when you're making those decisions.
Can I make a point about what Dana said? The Department of Defense oftentimes is late in getting the files of these guys who are veterans to the VA, and so these guys file for VA benefits, and the VA comes up with nothing. I mean, we don't know this guy was injured. In the meantime, the Defense Department hasn't been talking to them about how injured they've been, so they get back in, they get a letter back saying, we don't have you on record as having a bad, losing your arm, and it's back in the Defense Department. This has just got to stop. I mean,
well, they need bodies. They need people to look into these bodies,
and they need to have some intelligence here about what it takes. If you can run a military, which is supposed to be the best run, managed operation of the federal government, you surely can take care of the people who work for you.
And it's only going to get worse. Well, 66,000 more coming home from Afghanistan over the next year and a half.
Well, we were definitely ill-equipped to deal with this, but there is no excuse. I think every available resource should be dedicated to this, because we should hold our heads in shame as a country if we can't take care of those who go out to serve and protect us. It's bad enough leaving them in Benghazi, but this, unconscionable.
There's a lot of also for, we've talked about private sector efforts to help veterans when they've come back. That is working very well, especially for officers on some level. However, there are still complaints that the Department of Defense doesn't do a great job of trying to reach soldiers as they're transitioning out to tell them what their options are. The infantry guys, those are the ones that really need the support from the VA, as well as more support from an employment standpoint.
I have an idea.
I knew. I was going to say, Bolling,
hire the guys who need jobs, the veterans who are coming back who don't need benefits. Hire those guys to administer the benefits packages. That's genius. They'll be aggressive. They'll give them, they'll be generous.
And they'll understand the issue.
I think it's a great idea. It's a genius idea.
Well, listen, Danny put a finger on it. There are a lot of companies out there. They do take care of officers because they're very well trained, but they're now trying to figure out a way. What is it about an infantryman that works in a company? Well, one thing, they're dedicated. They've got a mission, and they can be taught.
And fearless.
And fearless. I mean, it seems to me that you look across your workforce, you ain't going to find people with those kind of values, and I think you could train them to do that.
Bob, can